Hey everyone, it's me. And I've been thinking a lot about SSTOs lately, how to make them, what they do, what they're worth, that kind of stuff. And if you don't know what SSTO stands for, it means single stage to orbit. In the past, they were called SSRTs, I think, which means single stage rocket technology. Um, Today's video is about me making an SSTO that goes to Minmus and back. And it was pretty hard. Yeah. I'm gonna let future me explain to you how SSTOs basically work. Bye-bye. Hey everyone. This is how an SSTO usually goes. So here we have the runway, and here we have the plane. And on the plane, there are engines, and there's a specific kind of engine that we want called a Rapier engine. And now, a Rapier engine is very fuel efficient. Now, there's another kind of engine on the back called a nuclear engine, and it kind of looks something like this. And it's got the little nuke symbol on it like that. Uh, and the plane takes off, and it's going like this. That's a very bad arrow. And it just kind of hangs out on sea level until it gets to about 450 meters per second. Now, when this happens, the rapiers get they're very energized, I guess. They got maximum airflow going through them. They're very good at this speed. And so what I like to do is wait for about 500 meters per second, uh, and then I tilt the plane to about 20 to 30 degrees on the nav ball, which kind of looks like this. You've got brown right here and blue right here, and you've got the little dashes right here. And so I just kind of keep on this uh, 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 degree angle, I guess, until about 20 kilometers up. Uh, and the rapier has been feeding on only fuel at this, fuel and air, the air around it, and air is kind of like over here. Here's ground, there's air, and then above here is space. And so it's been feeding on the air the whole time. But now it's too high for the air to be enough to power it. So the rapier switches into closed cycle mode. And if you don't know, you probably do though, there are two kinds of fuels that we use. There's fuel, which is hydrogen, RP1, or methane, and then there's oxidizer, which is generally liquid oxygen. And these two mix and become big explodey thing. Now, the oxidizer can be replaced with just air. And this is what normal airplanes do. They don't need to carry oxidizer, and then they just need to carry jet fuel. And then they react it with the air, and it creates big explodey stuff. This is also why your car needs a carburetor, so it can mix the air with the fuel and make big explodey thing. Um, so now it's too high up for the air to be effective at oxidizing the fuel. So it switches into closed cycle where it uses the oxidizer, and this is extremely fuel inefficient. It's it's um it is really fuel inefficient, and so we only use it for a short amount of time. And so right now, your apoapsis kind of looks like this. It's at about 30 kilometers, but when you use closed cycle, it's much more powerful than air breathing, which is air breathing is when it's using the air, and so now it's at closed cycle, and it's very powerful, and it gets your apoapsis up to about 70 or 80 kilometers up, and that is exactly what we want. So it's at 70 or 80 kilometers. Now you can coast up to apoapsis and fire in the super inefficient close cycle mode until you're in orbit, or you can do something different, and you have this nuclear engine right here, and you use the nuclear engine for the rest of the ascent and putting it into orbit. Now, once you're in orbit, you have a certain amount of meters per second uh, uh, of delta V. You can have 2,000 meters per second of delta V, or 3,000. I don't really know. Um, and so you can do whatever you want with this. You can go to the moon. You can get a flyby with Elu or whatever you want. But you need to be able to return into the atmosphere. And so when you do, you point retrograde. You fire the rockets in like this direction, and then your trajectory looks like this. So it's going into the atmosphere. I'm gonna make a new one. Um, don't save. So now, when you're going into the atmosphere, it's gonna be very hot and painful, which is why we use a heat shield. Um, and when we're going in, you can either control it, you can control the spacecraft to be at a certain angle. And so certain angles are better at slowing you down than other angles. So if your trajectory looks like this, you probably want to be like this so that all of the flames and stuff is hitting you, and it's slowing you down. It kind of looks like a comet. It's very red. It's very orange. It's very bad, for living. But we have a heat shield, so it's fine. Heat shields are kind of like orangish brown, and they kind of rest on the underside of the spacecraft, and they prevent you from dying. Um, and so you want to hold like this angle. If you don't, you can face prograde, which is just facing directly into the stream of death. And when you're facing directly into the stream of death, it's very deadly. Because your heat shield is not on your nose right here. Your heat shield is on the bottom right here. Uh, so um, so if you're just kind of like going in like this, you're gonna die really quickly. So you want to hold this angle. Now, it's very impractical for a person to just hold that angle with manual control. Them trying to just keep it on the nav ball like this, trying to hold it right here. It's really hard to do that. And so you use computers to hold it at that angle and control the RCS thrusters and stuff like that. Um, uh, so, um, in Kerbal Space Program, you can't actually tell it to just hold this angle. You have SAS, but it's not like holding this angle no matter what. Um, So what we do is we have this thing called a reentry control unit, and it basically looks like this. We have a probe core here, and we have another probe core right here. Now this probe core is kind of crooked. It's kind of off to this angle right here, and plane is looking like this. So you usually control from this um, port right here, and that's basically making you flying straight, and it's great and whatever. But when you're re-entering the atmosphere, you want to be holding that angle, so you control from this one instead. And so what you do is you face prograde, and now if you're facing prograde, then so if you're telling SAS here to face prograde, then it's going to face prograde. So if you're controlling from here and you're facing prograde, prograde for it is like right here, and it is facing in this direction right here, so it's going to tilt the whole thing up until it's facing there, and so it ends up doing something like this, where this is facing forward, but the whole plane is going like this, where the heat shield is facing into the stream of death. And so it's really good, this re-entry control unit here. Where's my mouse? Yeah, so it's really good, this re-entry control unit. It's very helpful, very nice. Yeah, that's kind of how SSTOs work. I hope you learned something. Goodbye. Hey everyone, I forgot to mention, but SSTOs can look like this. They can look rocket shaped with the rocket in the back, and they can look like that with the with a little window in the front like this. They can look like this, but most often they look like planes. Just forgot to mention that. Anyway, carry on. So, for the longest time, I could actually not make SSTOs, but, I was jealous of people like Matt Lone who could make SSTOs in their sleep, so I decided to look up a bunch of videos on how to make SSTOs, and I tried making an SSTO, and it was garbage, but I sent it to Minmus anyway, but then it crashed. And then, I made another SSTO, and it was actually pretty good this time, and so I sent that one to Minmus, and you're gonna watch a video of me sending it to Minmus. Okay, bye. Hello everyone. This is the final design that I've landed on. Um, and basically it looks like this, and it looks really cool. Um, and I'll just take you through it here. We got rapier engines, all with the cones in the back. We got the nuclear engines. We got this little drain valve right here. Um, some RCS ports right there, and we got passengers. This is kind of meant for like space tourism, and then the pilot's place, and then here in the cargo bay we have a docking port in case we're like really out of fuel, and we also got some RTGs, and I don't know if you can see that there, but it's um, like a re-entry control module. Very useful stuff. And a reaction wheel and some batteries. So I'll just put that away and do the ascent. Um, so yeah. So right now, we're just waiting for the plane to get up to about 600 meters per second, and then we start our ascent. And I think right about now is when we get into orbit. And now we are going to Minmus. And at Minmus, I have a refueling space station. And I thought it would be a good idea to test out its docking capabilities. But it is unfortunate because I got close to the space station, and it turns out that the space station doesn't have any junior-sized docking ports, so it was kind of all for nothing. So I loaded a quick save, and I started my Minmus descent. And here we are, starting our Minmus descent. And here we are with our Minmus landing, with about 1,700 meters per second to get back home, which is more than enough. And yeah, it's great. So I chose a pretty small orbit to be in. Um, and when I was in this orbit, the ground was just so close to me, I thought I could just get a Kerbal on EVA and use his jetpack and just do another Minmus landing. And that's exactly what I did here, as you can see. I just got a Kerbal on EVA, and I made him do a little landing. It's unfortunate that I didn't plant a flag though. So now I have this Kerbal, who is in orbit, with no way of getting back to his ship. I have to rescue him now, and so I go back to the ship, and I do what you would normally do, with like docking, when you're trying to get close to something. Um, yeah. So here's the situation. I have to get very close to Hadball, which is his name. Um, and Hadball has a very limited number of like EVA propellant. That was kind of a weird way of saying it, but he doesn't have very much jetpack fuel. And so I have to get very close to him and make him do very precise, fine movements with his jetpack to get to the hatch. Now, this kind of failed. He did get to the ladder, but he couldn't get all the way up the ladder because of the pesky Kerbal Space Program and their bugs and stuff. And so, um, I let go of the ladder because sometimes when you let go of the ladder and then get back on the ladder, you can, uh, the ladder will start working again. And then this kind of failed because I was left with 0.01 propellant left when I was on the ladder. So when he let go of the ladder and when I activated RCS again, it used up the last of his propellant to stop him from spinning. So he couldn't grab onto the ladder, and so I got Lemon out on EVA to try to push him back into the hatch, and this failed miserably, of course, because you can't push something with your arms or being at controls or whatever. And so then I got this idea. I swapped jetpacks with Hadball because I know that there's a bug where if you put an EVA jetpack into a cargo slot and then take it back out again, it will be fully refueled. But I guess that bug was patched for Kerbals because when we swapped jetpacks, we just ended up swapping jetpacks and none of it was refueled. So Lemon had zero jetpack propellant and Hadball had all the jetpack propellant. So then I got this idea, um, and I drove Lemon, I piloted Lemon over to the spaceship where I put the EVA pack inside one of the cargo slots, and then I took it back out again, and it was fully refueled, which tells me that the bug wasn't patched for spaceship. So I piloted the spaceship, um, to Hadball very slowly, and Hadball put his jetpack in one of the cargo slots, then took it out very fast, and then put it back on, and he had EVA propellant to get back to get back in the spaceship, and so both Kerbals were saved, and yeah. So now that both Kerbals are back on board, it's time to go home. Yeah. So, after several aero braking maneuvers, the final descent looks like this with the help of the what's it called? The re-entry control unit or whatever it's called. Um, yeah, this is what the descent looks like. At one point, you can see here, I flipped out of control, which totally threw my trajectory off. But it's okay because I have fuel. So I did a brief, actually pretty long, overseas flight. Or overland flight. It was partially overseas, partially overland, to go back to the runway where I landed the plane. So here we are coming in for our final approach, and I think I hit the runway with about 10 meters per second. 10 meters per second downward anyway, which is a good thing that there are no tourists on this thing, because that was totally break all their bones. And it was not very level when it hit the runway, but it was okay, in the end. And so, yeah, I started from this runway. I went to Minmus, and then I landed on this runway, and it was really good. You can see I'm, like, basically out of fuel now. Only 105 units of fuel remaining. Yeah, but bye everyone.